Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show.
We just got breaking news in.
We're going to do a little draft preview. The first round, or I don't actually know how many rounds I do the first day, but the first day of the draft is going to be on Sunday, and it's a 2-day draft. Obviously, it's going to be the 13th and 14th. Like I said, we're hoping to put something out. Maybe we'll do something Sunday night. I don't know. It probably wouldn't be a live show, but maybe we'll talk a little bit about whoever they end up drafting. But we kind of wanted to highlight a handful of guys here because we're seeing, the general consensus out there. It does seem to link the Giants to a lot of kind of prep shortstops. We brought up going catcher earlier in the year. I've kind of pivoted off like the need to do that in the first round. I am still a very strong believer that it needs to be done in the first 3 picks. Like they have a first, third, and fourth round pick. Like, I don't care. Take one in the third or fourth. That's fine. I still think it's something that desperately needs to be addressed in the system. It's just too big of a hole organizationally. So, but let's look at a few people and what guys do you guys really like that are reasonable? I mean, yeah, I'm sure all of us would love to be like, hey, let's get Ethan Holiday, but that's not going to happen.
You guys know who I want. Look at Irish, baby. Irish. Bring him to San Francisco. That's who I want. Now, is it realistic? Probably not. But he might go top 10. But either him or a guy that you guys pointed out a few days ago, was it Jace Laviolette, or I don't know how to say his last name. Laviolette, yeah. I would say either him or Ike Irish. That's who I want. I know I asked you guys about, why shortstops are being mocked to us so often, and you guys gave me a pretty good rundown as far as that. But just looking at the bat profiles for both of those guys, from what research I've done on them, with a farm system that's lacking like legitimate power threats or just overall upside with the bat, and we've been lacking in that department before Bryce Algers for quite some time. I really think you got to go big or go home on a guy like that. I mean, Ike Irish, yeah, he's kind of like a 50-50 catcher or outfielder. They're saying he's probably going to go primarily outfielder. I mean, his bat itself is insane. I would draft him just on that alone. But yeah, those are the two guys that I'm after.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Laviolette and Irish for the exact same reasons. I think the Giants absolutely need to add some high-end power to the top of their farm system. I think when they traded Tibbs for Devers, that left a big hole at the top end of their top prospect list. And I would just like to see somebody out of the college ranks with that kind of power and somebody that could potentially move up pretty quick, and just kind of add a little bit more value to the farm system. And, if it ends up being one of those two guys and they just end up needing to be a big time trade chip for some big name player, a year or two down the road, so be it. Both of those guys, without a doubt, will absolutely rake at both single A and high A. And at least that way, you have some pretty reliable production out of that first round pick, something they really need. You cannot afford to have this be another Hunter Bishop type pick and then just have a huge hole on the top end of your farm system. Go and get a guy like that's just going to rake at that lower level pitching. And then if you're kind of having some concerns with chase rate early on, but their numbers are kind of being covered up by just a ton of power, go and trade them and have them be like that James Tibbs type player. That's why a lot of us on here were big on that pick, because even if people thought he wasn't the greatest fit for Oracle Park, you have to look at these guys beyond just the fit position wise and for the stadium they're going to play in. These guys are assets and nothing else. That's purely what they are. You cannot just strictly look at how they might fit in Oracle, because there's so oftentimes guys move teams numerous times. So Nathan,
we'll pull that on the screen here later after this topic. But yeah, I mean, I've got kind of two names circled right now that I think that if either is on the board, there's to me, there's no chance they're going a different pick like that. I genuinely think if either Casey Cunningham or Ike Irish is on the board, one of those guys is going to get picked. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but it just the way they're talking about how they're being linked to a lot of prep shortstops, I think that's going to be the guy they target if he's there. I think if Irish is there, it's kind of like what these guys are saying. The bat is so good that it's one of those you just draft it, get it in the system, and figure out the defensive position. Like, you're not doing it to be the catcher of the future. You're not doing it to be the right fielder. You're doing it because you're like, this dude can rake, and we'll figure out where to put him. Because you're still going to probably have a year or two to do that. So, like, if you're going to go that route, like, that's why. And the point with the shortstop thing to me is really interesting, because the rationale behind doing it makes perfect sense. Quick twitch guy, usually the most athletic guy on the field, or one of, between them and the center fielder, like one of the most athletic guys on the field. Even if they don't stick at shortstop, you can usually move them all around. It's been proven a lot that you can put them, infield or outfield, moving them around. So it does make a sense there. And they're usually incredibly valuable as an asset. And like, Ricky just said, at the end of the day, this is asset accumulation first and foremost. You hope they turn into stars, but even if they don't, you hope they turn into a star either themselves or via trade. So, that is the big thing. I don't think, young shortstop is necessarily the top of this team's need, especially when you have Johnny Level in, you have Walker Martin, who's probably going to have to ultimately move off of short, but you have Walker Martin. Then in Arizona right now, you have Johnny Level, who looks like an absolute stud right now and is probably going to get bumped up to San Jose to finish the season. In the Dominican, you have Joshua Gonzalez, who just got moved to the Baseball America Top 100, and which is incredibly rare for everyone, for someone that's in the Dominican Summer League still. And all the scouts are still raving about him. They just, everybody over there, even though the power really hasn't shown up, everybody over there is like absolutely raving about him, going, this guy absolutely will stick at shortstop. And he has the makings of like an elite table setter. There's a reason why he's getting comps to like Francisco Lindor and Jose Reyes. Like that's how they look at this guy. And then in next year's international signing period, right now they have an agreement with Luis Hernandez, who, maybe he sticks at shortstop, maybe he doesn't, but you watch the guy hit, who's playing in like a Venezuelan pro league at 15 years old right now. And you see this guy playing and you're like, this guy also looks really good. So they have kind of all those young shortstops. So I don't think it's necessarily the biggest need, but it is also the most valuable position when you draft guys at that. So it makes a ton of sense there. I think Casey Cunningham, to me, elite hit tool, elite, maybe not quite elite speed, but very high end speed. And the power's a bit lacking, but he's only 18 years old, a little bit wiry frame. Like, he could certainly fill out a little bit and add some pop. To me, that's, and they believe he'll stick it short. So that is the pick for me if he's there. Although if Irish is there also, I probably just say screw it and go Irish. But like, to me, one of those two guys. Now behind that, I think all of us are on the same page of like, I just don't want to see Merrick Houston. Like, I feel like that's the floor pick and not the ceiling pick. But they do have some options. Tyler Bremner has been kind of linked to them. Steele Hall has been mocked to them a couple times. Baseball America today linked them to Wahiwa Aloy. I may have mispronounced
Wahiwa
that.
Aloy.
Wahiwa.
Yeah, he was actually one of the guys I was going to bring up. So Casey Cunningham's like the high school guy that I would go with, because we have heard, Roger talked about how they're looking into these more athletic high school shortstops. If we're going the high school route, Casey Cunningham's definitely the one guy I would like, just because I feel like the floor is pretty good with him, and I feel like he has a pretty reachable ceiling. Now on the college side, Wahiwa Aloy, he actually just won the Golden Spikes Award. So he's risen up draft boards pretty quickly. He actually is a Sac State guy. He moved over to Arkansas and not only tore it up there as a shortstop, has a ton of power. They gave him a 55 grade for power. I honestly think he's more of a 60 grade. I've seen him hit for a ton of power to all fields. And in the Cape Cod League, he was third in home runs last season or last summer with 8 in 21 games. So, the power is 100% legit, and he's a violent swinger, big, tall guy. They do think he might move over to second base, but he's a pretty good athlete, just not a ton of speed. And it didn't seem like range was a huge issue for him. It's just more on the base paths. You're not going to see a huge burner. But he's a guy I would definitely be intrigued with the Giants getting. And I definitely think he'll be there for the Giants in the middle of the first. But you never know, because you do see these college guys rise pretty quickly in the first round, and sometimes teams will reach for that. But 21 years old, and ton of upside with him. I think he's got a pretty good hit tool. Like I said, the power is really good, and the only major concern with him is there is a little bit of chase in there at times. But he's definitely one of the guys I would covet after, Kaysen, Ike Irish, and Laviolette. Laviolette and Aloy, I think, are the two most likely to be there at the Giants pick. I definitely could see Irish going like 2 or 3 spots before the Giants pick. And then Kaysen Cunningham might as well. He was like graded out as the top high school hitter in this draft for shortstops. So,
yeah. So here, if Kaysen and Irish are both off the board, who you pick?
Jace.
I think Jace has a really high floor. Like I said, as somebody that could come into the minors and just absolutely tear it up and be a really good trade chip. I do have some concerns that he could be like a Joey Gallo, who absolutely destroyed minor league pitching, came up and was really good early on, and then his career just faded super quickly because of the high chase. So I would be fine with that. Now, as somebody who I would actually want to get through the Giant system and stick long term, I would definitely take Aloy there. I think he would actually be a guy that would actually fit the ballpark and would be a guy who could rise through the system within 2.5 years. 2 seasons, something like that.
Dan, you said Jace?
I said Jace. It's just, I totally hear you out that Aloy's probably a better fit for the park. It's just, I'm all for getting that physical specimen of just an animal in your farm system. And that's what Jace brings you. Just that legitimate power threat that's going to strike fear into teams. Like, I want that. That's what we have with Bryce Eldridge. And I would just go Jace. Obviously, those first two you mentioned, either Cunningham or Irish, those are probably the preferred picks. But if they're both gone, give me that just absolute monster in Jace.
Yeah, I will say, because I know Ricky mentioned earlier, like, we don't want to get another Bishop. And that is kind of my fear with Jace. It's
a perfectly reasonable
kind
fear.
of a physical freak. Bishop, he's probably got a little bit more physical attributes, obviously, than Hunter Bishop did. Bishop does have really good speed and power combo. The hit tools never really materialized for him. But like, that's the fear for me, would be like the swing and miss just completely holds him back, and everything. So I'd probably lean Aloy too. Not trying to be like, oh, I'd make this pick scared, but I do like Aloy enough that I think I would probably lean that route.
He's probably a safer pick, realistically.
Yeah, I don't think his ceiling's obviously not as high. Like, Jace is just a complete, home run swing. Like, that's just, I'm either gonna strike out or I'm gonna just hit a tank here, because this guy, I don't feel like there's like that in between. Like I feel like it's just super high end ceiling, and I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily think he's got a high floor on that.
You're not wrong.
Funny enough, one of the other guys that the Giants have been mocked to more recently, I feel like is actually more of the Hunter Bishop in this draft, which is Brendan Summerhill. He's kind of he's a pretty polished player overall. He's out of University of Arizona. He's 21. He's pretty consistent all the way around player. The one thing that is kind of lacking that he's only shown glimpses of is his power. And he's just kind of one of those classic, like higher floor college guys that has a lot of the attributes, is a pretty good runner, pretty good thrower, pretty good defender in the outfield, doesn't really have any elite tools, but he's pretty solid in like almost every category, except for his power is still kind of developing. And that's one of those ones that would really concern me, because the Giants just do not have a track record at all of developing power. So he's a guy that would be someone you could look out for. If the Giants do go that route, I would be a little bit worried with that pick. He is a guy, though, if he does tap into his power, he could end up being like a Cody Bellinger type. That's the kind of guy, the kind of player he is, if he taps into that ceiling with his power. But yeah, he's the one I'd be a little bit worried with, because, you're looking at a 21-year-old, he's 22 when he spends his first full season in San Jose. If his numbers aren't off the charts there, his prospect status goes way down quickly. And then now you have a 23-year-old in Eugene who might not be lighting it up. And then it's like, he's not a guy you would see high up in the top 100 prospects in the MLB after the draft. Laviolette, I could absolutely see sliding right into the Giants' number 2 spot behind Eldridge, and being like a 80 to 90 range guy, just because he's a physical freak. The dude's massive, has enormous power. So huge upside pick. I'd support it 100%. If I had to take a guess, I don't think they'll go Laviolette. Doesn't seem like the Giants type at all. But I would be super, super stoked if they made that pick.
See, this is kind of emphasizing what my point was.
Yeah, like Audie says here, that's the thing. We can't afford more pretty solid players. We have enough of those in our farm system. And Ricky just said kind of the same thing too, where the state of the system right now, especially when you're looking for trade assets around the league, you need more of these high profile, like high upside, high ceiling players in the system. I do think it's better than what the top 100 lists show. Like currently right now, the top 100 lists have the Giants at 2 top 100 prospects. Bryce Eldridge at number 23, Josh Gonzalez at number 100. I think personally, Bo Davidson and Dakota Jordan and Johnny Level, I think all 3 of those guys are top 100 caliber prospects, high ceiling, toolsy players at just the position side of things. Now, if you can go into the pitchers, they've got a lot of guys down in Arizona, with like Argenis Kayama, Luis De La Torre just made his debut in San Jose. Jacob Bresnahan looks really electric in San Jose. They've got a few other guys that have been throwing the ball well in the lower levels. So maybe they do have some pitchers that ultimately can crack that list. But like I said, just on the position player side, they've got some guys that I think are going to be pretty high-end prospects here soon enough. But that doesn't mean go and draft a guy that's like even we saw it with Tibbs. He debuted on the top 100 list, had kind of some struggles in high A, fell immediately off the list. And he's having a good year this season, but he still hasn't climbed back on. So like they've got to get these, like draft the tools and ceiling. So that's where I would definitely agree with these guys. Like you got to go a bit more aggressive with that first round pick. Now, the 3rd and 4th round, I would just kind of stay on the same trend, draft for tools. I do want to see a catcher in there with one of those picks, but the 2 of your top 3 picks should be for tools. I want to see a catcher with one of them. And then after that, you can make some of those safer picks when you get to the 6th, 7th rounds or whatever. You can start making some of those picks for guys that you feel like kind of fit your development better.
No, absolutely.
And that's where I do like the Aloy pick a little bit. You've seen him in the Cape Cod and in high level D1 baseball for one of the top teams in the country. Really put his power on full display. And I mean, anytime a guy's winning the Golden Spikes, that's a legit hitter you're getting. That's not some guy that's just showing off the glove, you know. Like, this is Charlie Condon was absolutely nasty at Georgia. He won it last year. You've had guys like Buster Posey, Adley Rutschman. Like, these are legit hitters that are winning that award. So you know what you're getting in him. And like I said, the power is big time. This is not like a safe type pick. Like, this is a guy that will have a high ceiling and will absolutely be up there on prospect lists as well as Laviolette.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's all I got on this topic.
We'll probably go more in depth on that this weekend.
Yeah, once they've made the picks, you know, like I said, we'll see if we can whip something together for you guys. Maybe Sunday or Monday or something like that. We'll see what we can do.
It's just so hard to like mock and predict the draft because, like you saw with Dakota Jordan as a prime example, he was a sure first round pick and then he dropped 2 rounds just because of eligibility, signing, all that. I mean, a lot of factors go into play with the MLB draft for some reason. So it's like Joe mentioned in the comments, like, of course you would love to take a guy that's going to be a for sure star player, but it's not like the NFL draft where you're guaranteed one top 3, top 4. It's just a lot. There's a lot more hit or miss when it comes to the MLB draft, unfortunately. So